The transport ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a shudder that made Corporal Daewon grip his seat. Through the viewport, he could see Sanctum Prime floating in space like a blue jewel. The planet housed the most famous military academy in the entire Galactic Coalition. For 300 years, officers from 47 different species had trained here. Now, for the first time, humans would join them. Daewon looked at his team. Private Hyunwoo was pressing his face against the window like an excited child, even though he was the demolitions expert who could calculate explosive yields in his head. Private Jiwoo sat with her eyes closed, her fingers moving slightly as if typing on an invisible keyboard. She was always thinking about computer systems and networks. Private Taemin took up nearly 2 seats with his broad shoulders, checking and rechecking his equipment with careful hands. Private Bora stretched in her seat, her movements smooth and controlled from years of parkour training back on Earth. They were all nervous. Earth had only joined the Galactic Coalition 5 years ago. Before that, humans had thought they were alone in the universe. Then the aliens came and everything changed. Now these 5 soldiers were representing their entire planet at the most prestigious military school in known space. The docking process took 20 minutes. When the airlock finally opened, they were met by a creature that looked like a giant insect standing on 2 legs. His exoskeleton was deep purple and his forearms moved with precise military discipline. This was Instructor Velthar, a Quilathi officer whose reputation reached even to Earth. "Welcome to the Galactic Military Academy," Velthar said. His voice came through a translator device, turning his clicking sounds into words they could understand. "I am Instructor Velthar. I will be overseeing your training." Daewon saluted and his team followed. Velthar's large compound eyes studied them for a long moment. Daewon wondered what the alien instructor was thinking. Probably the same thing every other alien thought when they met humans for the first time. Deathworlders. That was what the other species called them. Earth was classified as a Class 9 death world, one of the most dangerous planets in the known galaxy. The gravity was too strong. The atmosphere had too much oxygen. The temperature swung too wildly between hot and cold. Predators were everywhere. Diseases evolved quickly. Even the plants could kill you. Most coalition species came from gentler worlds. Their planets had lighter gravity, calmer weather, fewer predators. They had evolved in safer conditions. When they looked at humans who came from Earth, they saw either dangerous brutes or reckless fools. Sometimes both. Velthar led them through the academy. The corridors were huge, built to accommodate species of all sizes. They passed cadets from dozens of worlds. Some looked like birds with hands. Others resembled reptiles walking upright. A few were covered in fur or scales or feathers. All of them stopped to stare at the humans. Daewon heard the whispers. Deathworlders. From Earth. I heard their planet has predators that hunt in packs. They evolved with barely enough oxygen. Dangerous. Bora leaned close to Daewon and whispered, "They act like we are monsters. To them, we probably are," Daewon replied quietly. They reached a large amphitheater where hundreds of cadets were gathered. At the front stood another alien, this one covered in scales that shimmered green and gold. He was tall and carried himself with obvious authority. This was Commandant Rexuli, a Horthian and the director of the entire academy. Velthar gestured for the humans to stop at the back of the room. Rexuli was addressing the assembled cadets about tradition and excellence. Then his eyes, which could move independently like a chameleon's, focused on the human group. "We have new cadets joining us," Rexuli announced. "From the planet Earth, a Class 9 death world." The amphitheater filled with murmurs. Rexuli raised one clawed hand for silence. "They will participate in our exercises like everyone else, including the siege of Fortress Carthan." This caused actual gasps. The siege of Fortress Carthan was legendary. It was a military simulation that tested everything a soldier knew about tactics, strategy, and warfare. The fortress was defended by advanced AI, automated weapons, and layer after layer of sophisticated defenses. Cadet squadrons had been trying to breach it for over a century. The record time was 96 hours, 4 full days. It had been set by a Vendorian unit 40 years ago, and nobody had come close to beating it since. Most units take a full week, Velthar explained to the humans later, in a private briefing room. Some take 2 weeks. A few never complete it at all. "What happens if we fail?" Hyunwoo asked. "Nothing permanent. The weapons are set to training mode. They hurt, but they do not kill. However, failure would be noted. Your planet's reputation in the coalition would be affected. Daewon understood. This was a test, not just of their skills, but of whether humans belonged in the coalition military at all. If they failed badly, it would confirm every prejudice the other species had about Deathworlders being too aggressive or too stupid for sophisticated warfare. When do we attempt it? Daewon asked. 3 days. That gives you time to study the fortress specifications and review historical attempts. For the next 3 days, the human team barely slept. They studied every detail of the fortress. They watched recordings of previous attempts. Jiwoo hacked into the Academy's database to find technical manuals. Taemin analyzed the weapon systems. Hyunwoo examined the structural integrity of the walls. Bora mapped out sightlines and patrol patterns. Daewon pulled it all together, looking for weaknesses. What they discovered was disturbing. Every single attempt followed the same basic pattern. Establish a perimeter, conduct reconnaissance, set up supply lines, advance slowly and methodically, wear down the defenses through patient systematic siege warfare. It made sense. That was how the coalition species fought wars. They were patient. They were careful. They minimized risks. They followed doctrine that had been refined over thousands of years, but they were also predictable. On the evening before their attempt, Daewon called his team together in their quarters. I have an idea, he said, but you are going to think I am crazy. We already think you are crazy, Jiwoo said with a slight smile. Tell us anyway. Daewon laid out his plan. At first, his team stared at him in silence. Then Hyunwoo started to grin. Bora nodded slowly. Taemin cracked his knuckles. Jiwoo's fingers began to move as if typing, working through the technical aspects in her mind. It could work, she finally said, or it could fail spectacularly. Everything we do might fail spectacularly, Bora pointed out. We are representing Earth at an alien military academy. Spectacular failure is always an option. The question is whether we try to beat them at their own game or play a different game entirely, Daewon said. The team looked at each other. They had trained together on Earth. They had survived the selection process. They had endured the long journey through space. They trusted each other. Different game, Taemin said. The others nodded. The next morning, they stood before Commandant Rex Uli and formally requested to attempt the siege of Fortress Carthen. Word had spread through the academy. When they arrived at the massive simulation chamber, hundreds of cadets and dozens of instructors had gathered in the observation deck above. Daewon could see a winged alien in the front row, his feathers puffed up with obvious pride. That would be Tormax, a Vendorian cadet whose species held the current record. He looked like he was expecting entertainment. Commandant Rexuli addressed the crowd. The human cadets will now attempt the siege exercise. Let us see what Deathworlders can do. There was laughter in his voice. Not cruel exactly, but skeptical. He clearly expected them to fail, and thought it would be a learning experience for the overconfident humans. Velthar approached Daewon one last time. You have studied the parameters? Yes, sir. You understand this exercise has challenged the finest military minds in the coalition for over a century? Yes, sir. Then good luck. You will need it. The human team entered the simulation chamber. Behind them, the massive doors sealed shut with a heavy boom. Around them, the holographic environment activated. 50 square kilometers of realistic terrain materialized, with the fortress rising in the distance like a mountain of metal and energy shields. The timer started. In the observation deck, Rexuli settled in to watch. Velthar's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Tormax leaned forward, eager to see the humans fail. Daewon looked at his team. They were scared. They were excited. They were ready. You all know the plan, he said quietly. Let us show them what Earth taught us. The 5 humans moved out, and within seconds they did something that made every alien observer lean forward in confusion. They split up. In the observation deck, Commandant Rexuli made a sound that his translator rendered as confused surprise. Instructor Velthar's forearms crossed over his chest. Tormax actually stood up from his seat. The humans had divided their forces. Every military doctrine in the coalition agreed on one fundamental principle. Never divide your forces when facing a superior enemy. The fortress held all the advantages. It had better weapons, better defenses, better position. The only way to overcome those advantages was to concentrate your forces and apply steady pressure. Splitting a 5-person team into 2 smaller groups was not strategy. It was suicide. They have already failed, Tormax announced to the other cadets. Watch, the fortress will eliminate them separately within the hour. But Rexuli noticed something. The humans were not just splitting up randomly. They were moving with purpose. 3 humans headed toward the fortress along the southern approach. 2 humans sprinted directly east toward the most heavily defended section of the fortress perimeter. What are they doing? One of the instructors asked. Velthar did not answer. His compound eyes tracked both groups simultaneously. He wanted to see where this led. The 2 humans running east were Hyunwoo and Jiwoo. They moved fast, much faster than most species could sustain. Their bodies had evolved in Earth's heavy gravity. Here on Sanctum Prime, where the gravity was gentler, they felt light and quick. Jiwoo ran with a small device in her hands, her fingers flying across its surface. She was hacking. The fortress had external sensors scattered around its perimeter. These sensors fed information to the main defensive AI. They told the fortress where enemies were approaching from. Within 3 minutes, Jiwoo had cracked the sensor network's basic security. She grinned. The defenses were sophisticated, but they were designed to stop physical attacks, not cyber intrusions. Coalition species fought with honor. They did not sneak around in computer systems. Humans had no such traditions. Got it, she said to Hyunwoo. Feeding false data now. She made the eastern sensors report massive thermal signatures. To the fortress AI, it looked like an entire company of soldiers was gathering for a major assault from the east. The AI responded exactly as it was programmed to do. It shifted 60% of its defensive resources to the eastern wall. Turrets rotated. Force fields strengthened. Patrol drones redeployed. The fortress prepared for an attack that was not coming. Hyunwoo reached the eastern wall while the defenses were still repositioning. He dropped to one knee and pulled out his demolition equipment. The wall in front of him looked solid, but he had studied the fortress blueprints. Behind this section was a major ventilation shaft. Most species had not even noticed the ventilation system. It was too small and too dangerous to use as an entry point. But Hyunwoo was not planning to enter through it. He placed shaped charges along the wall with practiced precision. Each charge was carefully calculated. Too much explosive would set off alarms. Too little would do nothing. Hyunwoo had been working with explosives since he was 18. He knew exactly what he was doing. Meanwhile, the other 3 humans were climbing. Daewon, Taemin, and Bora approached a steep mountain that overlooked the fortress from the south. Previous cadet teams had ignored this mountain. Climbing it served no tactical purpose. It was treacherous, covered with loose rocks and sharp drops. Even reaching the summit would not help you breach the fortress walls. But Daewon had not suggested climbing the mountain to breach the walls. Bora went first. She had trained in parkour and free climbing on Earth. Her hands found holds that other species would have missed. Her body moved with efficiency born from years of practice. Behind her, Taemin climbed with raw strength, his powerful arms pulling him up surfaces that would have defeated smaller soldiers. Daewon followed, moving carefully but steadily. The climb took 12 minutes. In the observation deck, the watching aliens grew more confused. The humans were wasting time and energy on a pointless mountain climb while the fortress sat untouched. They do not understand siege warfare, one instructor commented. This is amateur behavior. But Velthar said nothing. He watched Bora reach the summit and immediately pull out reconnaissance equipment. He watched her start scanning the fortress from above. Suddenly, Velthar understood. The humans were not trying to breach the fortress from ground level. They were mapping it from an elevated position. They were gathering intelligence that no previous team had obtained because no previous team had thought to climb a mountain. Bora's equipment fed her a complete overhead view of the fortress. She could see patrol patterns. She could identify weak points in the defenses. She could map out firing arcs and blind spots. And she found something interesting. The fortress's command tower rose from the center like a spike. It coordinated all the defenses. It was heavily protected from ground attack and side approaches. But the architects had made one assumption. They assumed no ground-based force could gain enough altitude to threaten the tower from above. The top of the mountain was almost level with the top of the command tower, and there was a gap in the aerial defenses. Daewon, Bora said quietly into her radio, I found our entry point. In the observation deck, several aliens were now standing. They had expected the humans to fail quickly. Instead, The humans had been active for 15 minutes and had not yet made a single direct assault on the fortress. This was unprecedented. What is their strategy? Rexuli demanded. Nobody could answer. The human tactics made no sense according to coalition doctrine. Then Hyunwoo pressed the detonator. The explosion ripped through the fortress's eastern wall. It was not a small blast. It was a massive detonation that sent debris flying and triggered every alarm system. The fortress AI immediately assessed the damage. The ventilation system had been compromised. Atmosphere was venting. Multiple redundant systems were failing. The fortress diverted more resources to the eastern section. It had to contain the environmental breach before the entire facility suffered catastrophic system failure. Repair drones swarmed the damaged area. Defensive weapons stayed focused on the east, where the sensors still reported enemy concentrations. Now they will attack, Tormax predicted. They created a distraction. They will try to enter through the breach. But the humans did not enter. Hyunwoo and Jiwoo were already running away from the eastern wall, heading south to rendezvous with the rest of their team. The fortress AI was confused. It had detected an attack and damage, but no enemy forces were exploiting the breach. It kept most defenses oriented east, waiting for the assault that should be coming. That was when Jiwoo's real hack activated. While everyone had been focused on her sensor manipulation, she had planted something deeper in the fortress's network. It was a simple piece of code, barely noticeable. All it did was add a 3-second delay to the fortress's internal communications. 3 seconds did not sound like much. To most coalition species, it was barely noticeable. Their reaction times were measured in fractions of a second, but their tactical thinking was slow and methodical. A 3-second delay was minor. To humans, 3 seconds was forever. Humans had evolved as both hunters and prey. On Earth, you had to react instantly or you died. Human reaction times were among the fastest in the known galaxy. In 3 seconds, a human could move several meters, change direction twice, and make multiple tactical decisions. Jiwoo's hack meant that every defense turret, every patrol drone, every security system in the fortress would be reacting to where targets had been 3 seconds ago, not where they were now. On the mountain, Daewon received the signal that both hacks were active. He looked at his team. Taemin was unpacking grappling equipment. Bora was checking her medical supplies. They were ready. Phase 2, Daewon said into his radio. In the fortress's command center, the AI detected new movement. 3 human signatures had appeared on the southern sensors, but these signatures were not approaching along the ground. They were airborne. The 3 humans had launched themselves from the mountaintop using portable grappling guns. They were ziplining through the air, heading directly toward the command tower from above. The fortress's aerial defenses should have eliminated them instantly. Turrets swiveled. Targeting systems locked on. Weapons fired. But the humans were not where the targeting system said they should be. The 3-second delay meant the weapons aimed at empty air. By the time the systems corrected, the humans had already changed position. Daewon felt a laser shot pass so close to his head that it singed his hair. Bora twisted in midair, dodging a projectile that would have hit her center mass. Taemin took a grazing hit to his shoulder and grunted but kept moving. They crashed onto the command tower's exterior platform with less grace than Daewon would have liked. But they were alive and in position. Alarms blared throughout the fortress. The AI realized it had been flanked from an impossible direction. It tried to redirect defenses to the tower, but the 3-second delay meant it was always reacting too late. Taemin pulled out a breaching charge. This one was much larger than what Hyunwoo had used on the wall. Several observers in the deck actually flinched. "Is he insane?" one of them shouted. "That much explosive will damage the actual equipment." But Hyunwoo had calculated this charge too. He had given Taemin. The academy erupted into chaos. In the observation deck, instructors were shouting at each other. Cadets from a dozen different species argued in their native languages. The translator devices could barely keep up with all the different conversations happening at once. The simulation malfunctioned, one instructor insisted. It must have. There is no other explanation. Run a full diagnostic, Commandant Rexuli ordered. His voice was tight with controlled shock. Check every system. I want to know if there was any technical failure. Tormax pushed through the crowd of cadets. His feathers were puffed up with agitation. This is impossible. My unit trained for 6 months. We studied every detail. We set the record at 96 hours using perfect tactical coordination. These humans arrived 3 days ago and did not even follow basic siege doctrine. Velthar said nothing. He simply replayed the footage on his personal display, watching the human tactics unfold again in fast motion. His mandibles clicked softly in what might have been amusement or concern. Perhaps both. Down in the debriefing area, the 5 humans sat together in a small room. They had been told to wait while the instructors reviewed what had happened. Nobody had said whether they were in trouble or not. Jiwoo nervously checked her equipment. Did we violate any actual rules? I have been thinking about it. The exercise parameters never said we could not hack the sensors. They never said we could not approach from above. They never said those things because nobody thought to try them, Taemin pointed out. He was rubbing his shoulder where he had taken the grazing hit during the zipline approach. It would bruise, but he had suffered worse during training on Earth. Do you think they will invalidate our time? Hyunwoo asked. He sounded worried. They could say our methods were not in the spirit of the exercise. Daewon shook his head. We followed their rules. We just did not follow their expectations. Those are 2 different things. Bora stretched her legs, still feeling the effects of the stun weapon that had hit her. Either way, I think we made an impression. Did you see their faces? I have never seen so many aliens look shocked at the same time. The door opened. Instructor Velthar entered, his forearms carrying data tablets. He looked at each human in turn with his large compound eyes. The diagnostic is complete, he said. There was no malfunction. The simulation ran perfectly. Your time is legitimate, the humans waited. There had to be more. Now, Velthar continued, settling into a chair that was designed for his species' body shape. I need you to explain what you did, not the actions themselves. I watched those. I need you to explain your thinking. How did you develop this approach? Daewon glanced at his team, then began. We studied all the historical attempts at the siege exercise. Every single team used the same basic strategy. Establish a perimeter, conduct reconnaissance, set up supply lines, advance methodically. It is good doctrine. Sound tactics. But it is also predictable, Jiwoo added. The Fortress AI has 300 years of data on that kind of approach. It knows exactly how to defend against patient, careful attacks. Velthar's mandibles twitched. So you decided to be impatient and careless? Not careless, Bora said quickly. We took risks, yes. But they were calculated risks. We knew what we were doing. Explain the mountain climb, Velthar said. That seemed to serve no tactical purpose according to standard doctrine. Daewon pulled up a holographic display showing the fortress layout. Standard doctrine assumes you attack from ground level. But the mountain gave us something nobody else had. An overview. From up there, Bora could see the entire fortress at once. She could identify patterns and weaknesses that are invisible from the ground. And the blind spot in the aerial defenses, Bora added. The command tower was protected from every ground angle. But the architects never thought someone would gain enough altitude to attack from above. Why would they? Most species find that kind of climb difficult and pointless. But you are from Earth, Velthar said slowly. A high-gravity world. Climbing here must feel easier to you. Everything feels easier here, Taemin admitted. Your gravity is about 70% of Earth's. We feel lighter, faster, stronger. It gives us advantages you do not expect. Velthar considered this. And the hacking? The false sensor readings. Jiwoo smiled slightly. Coalition species fight with honor. You attack directly. You do not sneak around in computer systems. But humans have been conducting cyber warfare for generations. It is part of how we think about conflict. When I saw the fortress defenses, I did not just see weapons and walls. I saw a computer network with potential vulnerabilities. The 3-second delay, Velthar said. That was clever. Most species would not even notice such a small lag in communications. But humans would, Daewon explained. On Earth, everything was trying to kill us. We evolved to react in fractions of a second. 3 seconds is enough time for us to move, dodge, change tactics. The fortress's targeting systems could not keep up because they were designed for species with slower reaction times. There was a long silence. Velthar processed all of this information. Finally, he spoke again. You are aware that many instructors and cadets believe your methods were inappropriate? They think you violated the spirit of the exercise even if you followed the technical rules. We know, Daewon said quietly. But with respect, instructor, in real war, would you rather win in 4 days or 20 minutes? Would you rather minimize your own risks or minimize the enemy's ability to respond? Before Velthar could answer, the door burst open. Tormax strode in, his wings partially extended in aggressive posture. Several other alien cadets followed him. "This is unacceptable," Tormax announced. "You did not win through skill. You won through brutality and trickery. Any species could do what you did if they were willing to abandon proper military discipline." Hyun-woo stood up, his face reddening. "Brutality? We did not hurt anyone. This was a simulation. You destroyed the command core with explosives rather than disabling it properly." Tormax shot back. "You hacked systems instead of defeating them through legitimate means. You took reckless risks that could have failed at any moment. This is not warfare. This is chaos." "It is different warfare," Daewon said, also standing. He kept his voice calm but firm. "Your way is not the only way. Just because we do things differently does not make us wrong. Your way would not work in real combat," Tormax insisted. "You cannot scale these tactics up. You need supply lines, reinforcements, strategic depth. You succeeded in a simulation, but you would fail in an actual war." "Would we?" Taemin asked. "Or do you just need to believe that because accepting the alternative means accepting that your tactics have limitations?" Tormax's feathers puffed up even more. He looked ready to continue arguing when Velthar stood, his height and 4 arms making him immediately commanding. "Enough," the instructor said. "Cadet Tormax, you are out of line. These humans completed the exercise within the established parameters. Your feelings about their methods are irrelevant." Tormax looked like he wanted to protest more, but he was too disciplined to argue with an instructor. He saluted stiffly and left, the other cadets following him. After they were gone, Velthar sat back down. He looked at the humans with an expression that was hard to read on his alien face. "I fought in the Krillian conflict," he said quietly. 30 years ago. The Coalition was fighting an enemy that used unpredictable tactics. They did not follow our rules of warfare. They attacked from unexpected angles. They prioritized speed over caution. Our forces struggled to counter them because our doctrine was not flexible enough. The humans waited. This seemed important. We eventually won, Velthar continued. But it took 8 years and cost millions of lives. Afterward, many of us wondered if we could have won faster if we had been willing to think differently. But institutional thinking is hard to change. The Coalition military has centuries of tradition. We do what works and we resist change. He looked directly at Daewon. "You remind me of that enemy. But you are on our side. You have shown that there are ways to fight that we have not considered. That is valuable. It is also frightening to many people here." "We did not mean to frighten anyone," Bora said. "We just wanted to complete the exercise." "I know. But you did more than that. You revealed something uncomfortable. The Coalition's military doctrine is excellent against enemies who think like we do. But what happens when we face an enemy who does not? What happens when predictability becomes a weakness?" Velthar stood again, gathering his data tablets. "There will be a formal inquiry. Commandant Rexuli will convene a board to review your performance. But I will tell you now, your time will stand. You earned it." He moved toward the door, then paused. "One more thing. Private Bora, you took a direct hit from a stun weapon during the breach. Standard protocol suggests that weapons should have incapacitated you for at least 5 minutes. You barely slowed down. How?" Bora looked uncomfortable. "I do not know exactly. Human physiology, I guess? We have higher pain tolerance than most species. Denser bones, more redundant systems. Evolution on Earth meant that if you could not keep functioning when injured, you died." Velthar's mandibles clicked. "A Deathworld creates Deathworlders. We should have anticipated this." After he left, the humans sat in silence for a while. Finally, Jiwoo spoke. 3 months had passed since the humans broke the siege record. The Academy was different now, though the changes were subtle at first. The Fortress Carthan simulation had been updated. The defensive AI now included randomized response patterns. The force fields had been strengthened against cyber attacks. The aerial defenses covered more angles. Instructor Velthar had personally overseen the modifications, using lessons learned from the human assault. The new record time was 47 hours. A mixed team of Vendorian, Qualathi, and Horthian cadets had set it 2 weeks ago. They had used some human-inspired tactics, including a diversionary cyber attack and a rapid assault from an unexpected direction. It was not as fast as what the humans achieved, but it represented new thinking. Day1 and his team had become unexpected celebrities. Other cadets sought them out in the dining halls asking questions about Earth tactics. Some were genuinely curious. Others were hostile, viewing the humans as disruptive influences who had invalidated decades of established military tradition. The 5 humans tried to navigate this attention carefully. They attended their regular classes, participated in standard exercises, and worked hard to prove they belonged at the academy for reasons beyond one spectacular achievement. Instructor. Velthar had created something new, the Asymmetric Warfare Study Group. It was an unofficial gathering where cadets could discuss unconventional tactics and challenge traditional thinking. The humans were founding members, but Velthar insisted the group include multiple species. At the current meeting, they were analyzing a historical coalition conflict. On the holographic display, a planetary defense showed coalition forces besieging a pirate stronghold. The siege had lasted 7 months and resulted in significant casualties. The pirates were outnumbered and outgunned, Velthar explained to the assembled cadets. But they held out for months because they used unpredictable hit-and-run tactics. Coalition forces followed proper siege doctrine and eventually won, but the cost was high. Jiwoo studied the tactical data. The coalition forces established supply lines and advanced systematically. Very methodical, and very slow, added a Quilathi cadet named Rekthar. The pirates exploited that slowness. Every time coalition forces prepared for a major push, the pirates would strike somewhere unexpected and force a repositioning. What would humans have done differently? Asked another cadet, a fur-covered Morellian named Kavish. Day1 zoomed in on the pirate stronghold's layout. We would have accepted more risk. See these supply tunnels the pirates used for their raids? Coalition forces tried to seal them carefully, one at a time. We would have collapsed the entire tunnel network at once with strategic demolitions, cut off their mobility advantage immediately. But that risks collateral damage, Rekthar pointed out. Civilians might have been in those tunnels. Which is why you evacuate first, Bora said. Send in teams to clear the civilians. Yes, it is risky. Yes, some teams might get ambushed. But you save time and lives overall by being aggressive early rather than cautious for months. The cadets discussed this approach, debating its merits and risks. Not everyone agreed, but they were learning to think beyond standard doctrine. After the meeting, Day1 was walking back to his quarters when Tormax appeared. The Vendorian cadet had been avoiding the humans since the siege exercise. Now he stood in the hallway, his wings folded tightly against his back in what might have been a gesture of humility. Corporal Day1, Tormax said formally. May I speak with you? Of course, Day1 replied, surprised. They walked to an observation deck that overlooked the academy's training grounds. For a moment, Tormax said nothing, just stared out at the cadets running exercises below. I was angry, Tormax finally said. When you broke the siege record, I felt my accomplishments meant nothing. My team spent 6 months preparing for our attempt. We studied every historical assault. We coordinated perfectly. 96 hours seemed impossible to improve upon. Your achievement was still impressive, Day1 said carefully. Was it? Tormax's feathers ruffled. You did it in 20 minutes with 3 days of preparation. How can both things be impressive? Day1 thought about how to answer. Your team pushed the limits of traditional siege warfare. You perfected tactics that had been refined over centuries. That took incredible skill and discipline. My team approached the problem differently. Because we do not have those centuries of tradition, we could think outside established patterns because we did not know any better. Tormax turned to face him. That is why I came to talk to you. I have been reviewing your assault footage, not to find flaws but to understand. And I realized something. You used data from previous attempts. My attempt. Our documentation helped you understand the fortress's defensive patterns. That is true, Day1 admitted. Your team's detailed reports were invaluable. Then perhaps, Tormax said slowly, our achievements are not in competition. They are complementary. My team provided the foundation of knowledge. Your team built something new on that foundation. Day1 felt relieved. I would agree with that assessment. Tormax extended one wing slightly, a gesture of tentative friendship in Vendorian culture. I have been thinking about hybrid tactics. Vendorians are excellent at aerial coordination. Humans are exceptional at ground speed and aggression. What if we combined those strengths? Are you suggesting we work together? I am suggesting we learn from each other. My pride prevented me from seeing value in your methods. That was foolish. The galaxy has many threats. The Coalition needs officers who can think in multiple ways. Over the following weeks, an unexpected partnership developed. Tormax began training with Bora, combining Vendorian aerial reconnaissance with human ground tactics. Other cadets noticed and started forming their own mixed-species training groups. The Academy's culture was shifting. Slowly, but undeniably. Then came the distress signal. It happened during a routine morning briefing. Alarms blared throughout the Academy. Commandant Rexuli appeared on all the display screens, his scales dark with concern. Attention all personnel. We have received an emergency transmission from Research Station Outpost 12 in the Outer Rim. The station is under attack by pirates using guerrilla tactics. Standard defensive protocols are failing. The nearest military response is 48 hours away. The station estimates they have 12 hours before shields collapse. The briefing room fell silent. Outpost 12 housed 300 researchers and their families. If the shields fell, the pirates would either kill everyone or take them hostage for ransom. We are preparing to send the patrol ship Vigilant, Rexuli continued. However, travel time is 9 hours, which may not be enough. Furthermore, the pirates are using tactics our patrol crews are not trained to counter. This is a developing situation. All senior staff report to the command center immediately. The cadets looked at each other with worry. Outpost 12 was well known. Many cadets had family members or friends who worked at Coalition research stations. This was not a simulation. People would die. Daewon stood up abruptly. We need to help. Jiwoo looked at him. We are cadets. They will not send us into a real combat situation. Maybe they should, Taemin said quietly. If the pirates are using guerrilla tactics, they are fighting unconventionally. Coalition patrol crews are trained in standard responses. What happens when standard responses do not work? The team looked at each other. They all knew what Daewon was thinking. Instructor Velthar entered the briefing room. He moved directly to the human team. Corporal Daewon, you and your team need to come with me. Now. They followed him through the corridors at a quick pace. Other cadets and instructors rushed past, everyone responding to the emergency. Velthar led them to the command center, where Commandant Rexuli stood surrounded by holographic displays showing the Outpost 12 situation. Instructor Velthar, Rexuli said without looking away from the displays. Why did you bring cadets to the command center during a crisis? Because I believe they can help, Velthar replied. Now Rexuli turned, his independent eyes focusing on the humans. This is not a training exercise. Real lives are at stake. Which is exactly why you need people who understand unconventional warfare, Velthar said. Look at the tactical data. The pirates are using hit-and-run attacks, striking from unexpected angles, exploiting blind spots in the station's defenses. This is the same kind of asymmetric approach the humans used in the siege exercise. Rexuli's scales rippled with uncertainty. You are suggesting we send cadets into actual combat? I am suggesting we send a team that includes cadets, led by experienced officers using tactics that have proven effective against unconventional threats. Daewon stepped forward. Commandant, we do not presume to have all the answers, but we have trained for exactly this kind of situation. Let us help plan the response. Rexuli looked at the humans for a long moment. His scaled fingers drummed on the console. The command center staff watched silently, waiting for his decision. Show me, Rexuli finally said. Show me how you would approach this situation. Daewon moved to the holographic display. It showed Outpost 12, a cluster of connected modules orbiting a small moon. The pirate forces were attacking with 3 light cruisers, using the moon's gravity well and radiation fields to mask their approach vectors. The assault shuttle cut through space at maximum velocity. Inside, 9 beings from 5 different species prepared for combat. Not simulated combat. Real combat, where mistakes meant death. Instructor Velthar sat in the command seat, his forearms managing multiple control systems simultaneously. Tormax occupied the navigation station, his natural abilities allowing him to plot courses through the radiation fields that would hide smaller human pilots. Rekthar monitored communications, his Quilathi multitasking capabilities tracking dozens of signals at once. The 5 humans checked their weapons and equipment. They had trained with Coalition standard gear, but Daewon had also requested some human-designed equipment from Earth. Specifically, breaching charges calibrated by Hyunwoo and cyber warfare packages modified by Jiwoo. Kivesh, the Morellian cadet, worked on adapting the station's defense systems remotely. His species had naturally sensitive touch, making them excellent with fine technical work. If they could strengthen the station's shields even slightly, it might buy crucial extra time. 6 hours until we reach the station, Tormax announced. The pirate ships are maintaining their attack pattern. They are being cautious, which suggests they have time and are not expecting interruption. Good, Velthar said. Surprise is our advantage. What is the station's current status? Rekthar listened to the multiple channels. Shields at 40% and falling. They have sealed off 3 modules that lost atmosphere. No casualties yet, but medical staff are treating injuries from structural impacts. Morale is declining. Can we communicate with them without the pirates detecting? Daewon asked. Possibly. If I use a tight beam transmission masked by the moon's radiation, it might go unnoticed. But it is risky. Do it, Velthar decided. They need to know help is coming. Hope matters. Rekthar worked his communications equipment with practiced skill. A few moments later he nodded. Message sent. The station commander has received it. He reports that knowing reinforcements are approaching has improved morale significantly. Bora was reviewing medical supplies. Coalition medical technology was advanced, but it was designed for Coalition species. Humans healed differently. She had brought specialized human medical equipment just in case. What is our plan once we reach the station? Kivesh asked. He sounded nervous. He was younger than the human cadets and had never been in real combat. Daewon pulled up a holographic display of the station. The pirates are focusing their attacks on the main docking module, trying to breach it and board. They want hostages, not destruction. That means we have an opportunity. The emergency airlocks, Jiwoo said, seeing where he was going. On the smaller modules. The pirates are not watching those because they are too small for boarding parties. Too small for most species. Taemin corrected with a grin. But humans fit through narrow spaces pretty well. So we board through emergency airlocks while the pirates focus on the main entrance, Tormax summarized. Then what? We are 9 against dozens of pirates. We do not fight them directly, Daewon explained. We strengthen the station's defenses from inside. Kivesh, you will work with station engineers to boost shield power. Jiwoo, you will hack into the pirate communications and create confusion. Bora, you will help coordinate evacuations and treat casualties. Hyunwoo and Taemin, you will set up defensive positions at critical access points. And me? Tormax asked. You will use your aerial capabilities to scout the station's exterior, find weak points the pirates might exploit. Help us stay ahead of their attacks. Velthar listened to all of this and nodded approval. It is a good plan. It uses everyone's strengths. But remember, this is not the academy. There are no respawns if you fail. No reset button. Every decision has permanent consequences. The shuttle fell silent. Everyone understood the weight of what they were about to do. 5 hours later, they entered the radiation field around the moon. Tormax guided them through with remarkable skill, avoiding detection by both the pirates and the station's damaged sensors. The shuttle approached the station from below, a direction the pirates had left unguarded because they assumed no help could arrive in time. Emergency airlock Delta 7 is our entry point, Velthar said. It will be a tight fit, but we should manage. Prepare for docking. The shuttle matched velocity with the station and attached to the small airlock with a soft clang. Hyunwoo immediately began overriding the lock's security. It took him less than 90 seconds. Show off, Jiwoo muttered, but she was smiling. They entered the station one by one. The corridor beyond the airlock was dimly lit, running on emergency power. Somewhere in the distance, they could hear the sound of impacts as pirate weapons struck the station's hull. A frightened station engineer met them. She was a Horthian, her scales pale with stress. You are the reinforcements? Just 9 of you? 9 is enough, Velthar assured her. Take us to your commander. The station commander was a veteran Quilathi named Tirash. He looked exhausted, his mandibles clicking with anxiety. When he saw the mixed team, hope flickered in his compound eyes. Can you help us? He asked simply. That is why we are here, Daewon replied. But we need your cooperation. Where are your engineers? Within minutes, the team dispersed throughout the station. Kivesh and 2 station engineers began rerouting power to the shields. Jiwoo found the station's communication hub and started her cyber warfare operations. Bora set up a triage center and began treating injured personnel. Hyunwoo and Taemin established defensive positions. Tormax exited through another airlock, using his species' ability to survive briefly in vacuum with proper equipment. He scouted the station's exterior, mapping pirate positions. Daewon stayed with Velthar and Commander Tirash in the control center, coordinating all the different efforts. Shields are at 45% and rising, Kivesh reported over the radio. I found inefficiencies in the power distribution. Fixing them now. I am in the pirate communication network, Jiwoo announced. They are using basic encryption. Amateurs, I am feeding them false sensor data. They think the station's shields are weaker than they actually are. Will that not make them attack harder? Tirash asked worriedly. Yes, Jiwoo said, but they will attack in the wrong places, sending them to waste their efforts on reinforced sections while we strengthen the weak points they are not watching. It was working. The pirates intensified their assault on areas that Jiwoo's false data indicated were vulnerable. But those areas were actually the strongest. Meanwhile, Kivesh redistributed shield power to the truly weak sections. An hour passed. Then 2. The station was holding, but the pirates were getting frustrated and suspicious. One of their commanders apparently realized something was wrong. The attack pattern suddenly changed, becoming more random and aggressive. They are adapting, Velthar observed. They know someone is interfering. Tormax's voice came over the radio, urgent. 3 pirate boarding parties are launching. They are targeting airlocks Alpha 3, Beta 9, and Gamma 5. The station's defenses cannot stop all of them. How long until they breach? Daewon asked. 4 minutes. Maybe 5. Daewon made instant decisions. Hyunwoo, take Alpha 3. Set up a surprise for them. Taemin, Gamma 5 is yours. Standard defensive position. I will handle Beta 9 with Velthar. What about me? Rekthar asked. I am not trained for combat. You do not need to be, Daewon said. Stay in the control center. Keep communications clear. Make sure all our people can talk to each other. That is just as important as fighting. Daewon and Velthar reached Beta 9 airlock with 90 seconds to spare. The corridor was narrow and dimly lit. Perfect for defense if you knew what you were doing. Have you done this before? Velthar asked, checking his weapon. Room clearing? Yes, against actual pirates. No, you? I fought in the Krillian conflict. Similar situations. The key is controlling the environment. Make them come to you on your terms. The airlock began cycling. The pirates were breaching. At Alpha 3, Hyunwoo had set up one of his special surprises. He had rigged the corridor beyond the airlock with a shaped charge that would not breach the hull, but would create a concussive blast in the enclosed space. Not enough to kill, but definitely enough to stun. The pirates breached. 8 of them rushed into the corridor, weapons ready. Hyunwoo triggered the charge. The blast knocked all 8 pirates unconscious. Station security personnel moved in and secured them without a single shot being fired. Alpha 3 secured, Hyunwoo reported calmly. Pirates are sleeping. Do you want me to tie them up with bows? At Gamma 5, Taemin had set up a heavy weapon position. When the pirates breached there, they met concentrated fire from a human who had evolved in heavy gravity and could handle recoil that would knock over smaller species. Gamma 5 holding, Taemin reported. Pirates are retreating. I think I scared them. At Beta 9, Velthar and Daewon worked as a perfect team. Velthar's forearms allowed him to fire and use equipment simultaneously. Daewon's human speed and reflexes let him dodge and return fire faster than the pirates expected. The pirates had never fought Deathworlders before. They were not prepared for humans who could take hits and keep fighting, who moved with aggressive speed, who thought in fractions of seconds instead of slow tactical consideration. Beta 9 secured, Velthar finally reported.